Aloha and welcome to the screencast on page development and play. I want to go over some of the concepts that are important if you're going to be adding new pages to a web application in play, which also just gets at kind of the standard or basic concept of the model view controller paradigm in play and how you play with it. So there's basically three places in your application you have to worry about when you're adding a new page or creating pages. The first is in the conf directory. It's called the routes file. And the routes file is going to be used to map the URL request to a particular controller method that's supposed to be invoked when a URL request comes in. So that's the play framework getting something from the user, which is a request from the user in terms of URL to the code that should be executed. The second piece of it is this controller method itself. So in the app controllers package, there's a class which by convention is called application.java, and it implements handlers for web requests, which turn out to be basically static methods of this application class. And so you're going to invoke one of these things. Your routes file is going to say which of these methods are going to be invoked. These methods are going to do stuff. They might access the database or do whatever they're going to want to do, but at the end of the day, what they're generally going to always do is return a quote-unquote rendered page, which is going to be provided some results to display. Now, what are these rendered pages? Okay. Well, then the third part of it is in the app views package or directory. There are a set of files called Scala that end with .scala.html, and they'll have a name. They could be named index, or in this case, I have this example of being named page. And these are really kind of interesting, semi-magical files to a Java developer, because they are both, they look like templates for pages, okay? And when you write them, that's the way you're thinking about them. But they are also Java classes, which is the kind of the crazy thing, and it's a crazy cool thing, I'll say. And it has to do with the fact that Scala is kind of the underlying language for play more than Java is. So what happens is you're going to write this thing that looks like a template for displaying a page, but underneath the covers, it's going to be compiled into a class that's a Java class, which can be referenced in your controller. And this Java class is going to have, in particular, a method called render. Okay? So if I define a file called page.scala.html in the views directory, the play system, when it compiles, when the compiler is invoked, okay, it is going to magically, and I say that word advisedly, magically, because as a Java programmer, we don't know how the heck it does this, but it somehow magically compiles that template, that page.scala.html file, into a Java class in the views.html package with the same name. And this is why I have gone ahead, and when you see any of my play applications, you're going to notice that my play applications, they always capitalize the name of these view files. That's so that when you get this magical compilation into a Java class, the name of the class looks right. It's capitalized. Okay, and in most of the examples you'll see of the play framework, you're going to see these lowercase class names, which I find very confusing and hard to read because I expect Java classes to begin with a capital letter. So it's very easy to fix. You just name your views with a capital letter and it all works out. Okay, so they're the three pieces, and when we go through this example of adding a page to a sample play application, you'll kind of see how these all interact. Okay, the next thing to note is that the way we have Eclipse configured right now, it cannot compile these .scala.html files into their Java class counterparts, and that's going to wreak havoc. Well, that might be a little strong. It's going to upon occasion, it's going to wreak havoc. Okay, what basically the implications of this are is that in order to compile your system, when you make a change to one of these files, what you're going to need to do is have the play console, the play environment, do the compilation. Okay, and we can't, the way I've got Eclipse configured now, we can't get there through Eclipse, so what we have to do is get the play console to do it, and we can either type compile in the play console. That's a perfectly reasonable way to do it, But a somewhat more convenient way to do it is to actually simply reload a page that is pointing at your Play application. And when you do that, Play is smart enough to recognize whether or not, when it's in development mode, to recognize whether or not any files need to be compiled and do that compilation. The other reason why it's nice to do it that way is that if there is a compilation error, it's going to show up in the browser, which is kind of a nice place to see it. Okay? So, okay, fine. So I'm going to hit reload. I'm going to get my thing recompiled. But what you'll notice when you're working with Eclipse is Eclipse is going to kind of lag behind the times and sometimes show that there are compiler errors in your project and little, red stars and stuff when there actually aren't. And you know that because you've just compiled the system and it's running in your browser. So, you know there's no compiler errors. Most of the time, you can simply refresh the project in Eclipse and that's going to eliminate the errors. What I've noticed is upon rare occasions that won't work. And what appears to fix it for me is to go into the Play console, type Eclipse to regenerate the .project and the .classpath files, then do refresh in your browser and it appears to go away. So if we see that problem, we'll try those two techniques. Hopefully they'll work. All right, so let's go on to our actual system. Sure, I can say that. Okay, so here you see I've set it up. I've got this Play Bootstrap template. Okay, I'll just go into it. Okay, which is a standard, the standard file that you've seen several times before. It's got the app, the views, all these different directories, and I have it running in. I have the Play console up. I've typed run to run it, and so we go over here and we can see that I've got the system running. So let's go ahead and try to add a page 2 to this template and see how it works. Well, as I said before, the first thing we want to do is go to the routes file. And so if we go to this file, we can add a URL, page 2, and we're going to say, look, we're going to go invoke the method controllers.application.page2 when we see that. Okay? Now, in order to get that compiled into the system, as I said before, Eclipse won't do it, so what we need to do is reload our browser in order to get there. Okay, and now we're going to see a couple cool things. One is, I told you that these view files are actually going to be compiled down to Java classes. And it actually turns out that this routes file is also going to be compiled down to a Java class, which is kind of crazy, but it's true, okay? And the good news about this is because it's compiled down, it's actually checking to see whether or not the methods that you talk about in this routes file actually exist. This is an advantage or a feature of the Play environment that other dynamic environments like Django or Ruby on Rails and so forth that also have a routes file, they can't do this. That you only find out at runtime when you actually try to use that particular rule, that things don't work out. Play has the great feature that it will tell you at compile time whether or not everything's consistent. So this is a huge, nice thing. What we learned is that page 2 is not a member of the object controllers.application. So reading that, you think, okay, well, let me go here and see if I can find page 2. And, it's pretty obvious. Hopefully, looking at that, you'll instantly jump to the conclusion I should look at this class. And what I can see here is I don't have a page 2 method that's being invoked. Okay? Well, okay, let's go ahead and add one. So I'll say copy. And I'll say returns page 2. And I guess I'll say this is a third page. And page 2. And page 2. And maybe I'll just keep this like that for this second. Okay, so now I'm going to recompile. Okay, and it actually works. Okay, so now I've got this page 2 available within the page 1 application, but it's not displaying anywhere. Okay, and so the next thing I need to do is implement my view. Okay, so what I'm going to do is do it this way. I'm going to say, okay, in my navbar, I want a page 2. So I'm going to put page 2 here, and page 2 here, and page 2 here. Okay, and then in application, I'm going to try to render this view, page 2, that I've created. But so let me just try to do refresh. Okay, so now I get a new compilation error. I'm trying to deliberately get these compilation errors so that you can start to see what's going on. And what I see here is it can't find the symbol page2.render, and that's because it appears I don't have that that Java class. Okay, so let me now get this page1.scala.html, and I'm going to save as page2.scala.html, and I'll call this page 2, and I'll save it out. Okay, so now theoretically I should compile a page 2 class and everything should work. Okay, now it still says that I've got this error, it can't find the symbol, and this is what I wanted to show you, is that part of the problem here, even though a page 2 exists, okay, see it says import page 2 views.html. So the problem is with my import statement. So let me actually do this quick fix. There we go. Okay, so now that's in there, I'm going to save it out. I'm going to reload. Okay, and now, okay, so now I can see I've got a running system. It's in fact got the page, well, it says welcome to page 1. I got to fix that. But I've got page 1 and page 2 and home. But my Eclipse environment is still showing me as having an error. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say refresh. Okay, and now all of those problems go away. Now, if they hadn't gone away, my next step would have been to Control-D out of here, type Eclipse to reconstruct the Eclipse files, and then refresh again. And that hopefully will make sure that everything's okay. Okay, so just for the purposes of making things look right, I'm going to say welcome to page 2, and then I'm going to refresh. Oops, I got to type run. Refresh. Okay, and then page 2, welcome to page 2. Okay, so just to recap, I've updated the routes file. I've updated the application and controllers file with a new static method page 2 that's going to render the page 2 class, called the render method of the page 2 class. The page 2 class is magically created through this particular view template. Okay, I think with that you guys should be good to go to build your play pages.